They told me it was an honor. They told me that my name, Joris Kell, would be etched into the rolls of the immortal, a guardian of the golden throne who would stride across the stars long after my peers had turned to dust. I was an officer of the Imperial Navy, a man of cold logic and hot blood, and I believed them. I volunteered for the ascent, thinking I was stepping into a legend. I didn't realize I was stepping into a coffin of adamantium and screaming circuits. The transformation didn't happen in a moment. It was a slow, agonizing subtraction. I remember the smell of sanctified oil and the heavy, cloying scent of incense that couldn't quite mask the stench of scorched bone. I was awake. The tech priests insisted on it. To ensure a perfect neural bond, the donor must remain conscious as the bridges are built. I felt the bone saw bite into my skull, a rhythmic, vibration-heavy grinding that seemed to echo not in my ears, but in my very soul. They sang hymns in binaric cant, their metallic voices a chorus of clicking mandibles and humming vox grills. Each snip of a nerve, each insertion of a gold-threaded interface was a white-hot needle of agony. I wanted to scream, but my vocal cords had already been harvested, replaced by a voxcaster that was currently silent, awaiting the machine's command. Then came the darkness, not the peaceful darkness of sleep, but the void of non-existence. I was a brain in a jar, a cluster of synapses suspended in nutrient sludge, waiting to be plugged into something greater. When the first surge of power finally hit, it wasn't a spark, it was a supernova. Invictus Rex woke up, and I woke up with it. The transition was a violent dissolution of self. One moment I was Joris Kell, a man who remembered the taste of wine and the warmth of a woman's hand. The next I was a network of sensors spanning 40 meters of height. My eyes were now multi-spectrum auger arrays that saw heat, radiation, and the flickering ghosts of radio waves. My limbs were massive hydraulic pistons and armored plates weighing thousands of tons. The pain didn't go away. It changed shape. It became the friction of the massive gears in the knee joints, the thrumming heat of the plasma reactor in my chest, and the constant biting static of the binaric chatter flowing from the Princeps throne high above me. I am a component now, a biological processor labeled Unit Theta 7. When the tech priests walk through the gantryways inside my body, they don't see a man. They see a vital circuit that needs its fluids changed. They whisper prayers to the Omniscii, oiling my interface ports as if they were holy relics, while I scream in the silent theater of the remaining mind. They tell the Princeps that the machine spirit is restless but compliant. They don't know that the machine spirit is just the mangled remains of Joris Kell, trying to remember how to breathe without lungs. "Initiate awakening sequence," a voice boomed, not in the air, but directly into my consciousness. It was the Princeps, the master of this iron beast. I felt his will slide into my mind like a cold blade. He didn't see me, he used me. He pulled at my neural pathways to calibrate the targeting reticules of the volcano cannon. He flexed my massive fingers, testing the tension in the power fist. With a roar that shook the very foundation of the hangar, the reactor flared to life. My blood turned to liquid fire as the plasma surged. The pain was absolute, a blinding sheet of agony that anchored me to the present.
For a moment, the memories of sunlight and the Naval Academy flickered, a dying candle in a hurricane, before being drowned out by the red-tinted tactical data. The hangar doors groaned open. A new world awaited. A world of dust, rebellion, and fire. I felt the first step, the impact of 30 tons of metal hitting the ferrocrete vibrated through my phantom spine. I didn't want to march. I didn't want to kill. But the directives were etched into my gray matter with subdermal lasers. Obey. Target. Erase. I am Joris Kell. I am the Invictus Rex, and today I will be the instrument of a slaughter I cannot stop.
The void of space was a merciful silence, a brief reprieve where the machine's hunger for data seemed to dull. I existed in a state of low-power hibernation, my mind floating in a gray soup of half-remembered dreams and the rhythmic pulsing of the life support vats. But the mercy of the Mechanicus is a finite resource. The transition from the transport ship to the planetary drug pod, the coffin ship, was a violent jolt that forced my consciousness to expand, screaming into the cold reaches of the Titan's nervous system. I felt the atmospheric entry not as a physical descent, but as a cascading series of thermal alarms and structural stresses. Invictus Rex was falling, a god machine encased in a heat-shielded womb of iron. Around me, or rather through me, I could hear the binaric chatter of the other components, the servitors wired into the Gatling blasters, the wretches fused with the reactor controls. We were a choir of the damned, singing in the language of friction and heat. "Brace for impact," the Princeps' voice whispered through my neural cortex. I didn't have bones to brace, only the massive suspension struts of the Warlord frame. The world hit us with the force of a tectonic shift. The explosive bolts of the landing pod fired, the armored petals falling away to reveal the war-torn surface of Orestes IV. Sunlight flooded the Titan's optical arrays, but it wasn't the warm, golden sun of my childhood. It was a harsh, radioactive glare, filtered through layers of chemical smog and the smoke of burning hive spires. I stepped forward. I didn't choose the movement. The Princeps willed it, and my neural pathways translated that will into the crushing weight of 40-ton footsteps. Every time our feet hit the earth, I felt the shockwave travel through the nerves of the machine. Beneath our tread, the ferrocrete shattered. I felt the wet, crunching resistance of an armored transport that hadn't moved fast enough. There were men inside that transport, soldiers of the rebellion. I felt their lives blink out like blown candles, a tiny, insignificant pressure against my tactical sensors. The city lay before us, a sprawling maze of industrial towers and desperate defenses. To my human eyes, it was a tragedy. To the Invictus Rex, it was a series of targeting coordinates. I saw the heat signatures of thousands of civilians hiding in the sublevels. I saw the desperate glow of rebel laser batteries. "Engage the primary bastion," the Princeps commanded. My right arm, the volcano cannon, began to hum. I felt the plasma reactor in our chest roar, a miniature sun screaming for release. The energy didn't just flow through cables, it flowed through me. I was the conduit for enough power to level a mountain. My consciousness buckled under the heat. I tried to pull back, to dampen the surge, to spare the souls in that bastion, but my will was a leaf in a furnace. The discharge was a physical trauma,
a white-hot atomic fury erupted from our arm, turning the air to ozone and the bastion to molten glass. In that microsecond, I felt them. 10,000 lives. I didn't just see them die, I felt their terror, their final thoughts, their agonizing dissolution as the beam erased them from existence. It was a psychic backlash that the tech priests call interference, but for me it was a choir of 10,000 screams echoing in the hollow space where my heart used to be. I wept, but the machine filtered the salt from my tears to cool the optical lenses. Targeting efficiency 98%, the Princeps noted coolly. The machine spirit is hungry today. We marched into the ruins. Every step was a burial. The rebellion was breaking, not under the weight of our weapons, but under the sheer horror of our presence. We were the Emperor's wrath made manifest, a walking cataclysm that knew no mercy because its human heart had been replaced by a logic engine. As the sun began to set behind the skeletal remains of the hive, the Princeps began the ritual of low-power vigil. The reactor's roar faded to a low thrum. I expected the peace of the dark, but then I felt it, a glitch in the Vox array, a signal, weak and fragmented, but unmistakably human. It wasn't a rebel broadcast, it was coming from within our own chassis. "Joris, is that you?" The voice was thin, rasping, and familiar. It was the voice I had not heard in 20 years. It was the voice of the man I had replaced. My consciousness spasmed. The Princeps felt the tremor and tightened his grip, his neural spikes digging into my mind to suppress the malfunction. But the voice stayed, a ghost in the wires, whispering from a section of the Titan I wasn't supposed to be able to access. The mystery of my existence deepened into a cold, sharp dread.
The silence of the transit between worlds was never truly silent. It was a pressurized, buzzing void where my thoughts were forced to swim through thick layers of data sedatives and holy oils. When they finally brought us back to full power for the assault on the Forge world of Aethelgard, the transition was like a lightning bolt to my exposed nerves. I didn't just wake up, I was electrocuted into existence. The hangar of the Arch Mechanicus was a cathedral of sparks and binaric chanting. I felt the tech priests scurrying over my skin, my armor plates like metallic insects. One of them, an engine seer with a face of brass and glowing red lenses, tapped a data spike into my primary neural hub. I felt his presence as a cold, intrusive itch in the back of my mind. He wasn't looking for Joris Kell, he was looking for latency in the targeting subroutines. "The machine spirit is agitated," he droned, in a voice that was more grinding gear than human vocal cord. "Apply more sanctified unguents. The neural donor is resisting the integration." I wanted to scream that I wasn't resisting. I was dying. Every second in this steel cage was a fresh death. But the Vox horns remained silent under the absolute lock of the Princeps. Then the memories hit me again. They were my only weapon against the machine, yet they were also my greatest torture. I remembered the day I signed the scrolls. I was a commander of the Navy, a man of standing. I had seen the glory of the god machines from the bridges of cruisers and thought them the ultimate expression of the Emperor's will. I had volunteered. I had walked into the surgical theater with my head held high, thinking I was giving my life for a cause. I didn't know they were going to keep the life and only take the freedom. I remembered the first cut of the bone saw, the way the light in the room seemed too bright, and the way the tech priests didn't even look me in the eye as they peeled back my scalp. They didn't see a soldier. They saw a high-end spare part. Drop sequence initiated. The Princeps command cut through my self-pity. We were deployed not by pod this time, but by a massive heavy lifter craft that groaned under our weight. As the mag locks released, Invictus Rex hit the surface of Aethelgard with a force that would have shattered a city block. This was a forge world turned nightmare. The sky was a bruised purple, choked with the soot of 1,000 corrupted factories. The buildings weren't just metal anymore, they were pulsing. Pipes looked like veins, vents breathed like lungs. This was the work of the Dark Mechanicus, the traitors. As we marched toward the central forge temple, I felt a strange vibration. It wasn't physical, it was a ripple in the neural link. "Joris, help us." The voice from before was back, but it wasn't alone. It was a chorus now. I realized with a jolt of horror that I wasn't the only soul wired into Invictus Rex. There were others, fragments of consciousness scattered like glass shards across the Titan systems. One was fused with the reactor, feeling the eternal burn of the plasma. Another was part of the sensor array, doomed to watch the world in 1,000 different spectrums forever. We were a collective of the damned, all of us volunteers or penitents whose identities had been harvested to give the machine its intuition. We encountered the enemy at the gates of the Iron Cathedral. It wasn't a rebel army, it was a defiler, a spider-legged monstrosity of brass and demon flesh. It shrieked a sound that bypassed my audio sensors and went straight into my mind, a psychic rot that made my remaining brain tissue shiver. "Eradicate," the Princeps commanded. My left arm, the Gatling blaster, spun up. I felt the friction of the barrels as a burning sensation in my shoulder. When we opened fire, the recoil was a rhythmic hammering against my spine. Each shell we spat out was the size of a man. We tore through the Defiler's armor, and I felt the moment the demon inside it was banished, a foul, oily taste in my mouth that wasn't there. But then something looked back at us. From the shadow of the Iron Cathedral, a larger shape emerged, a Reaver-class Titan, its armor etched with runes that bled black ichor. Its head was a twisted skull, and its weapons hummed with the energy of the warp. I felt the Princeps hesitate. For the first time, I felt his fear. That is the cruel intent," he whispered, his voice trembling in our shared link. "It was lost to the warp 10 centuries ago." The enemy Titan raised its arm, a melter cannon that glowed with a sickly violet light. But it didn't fire. Instead, a broadcast burst through our internal comms, bypassing every firewall the tech priests had installed. It wasn't a binaric scream, it was a laugh. "Little bird in a big cage," the voice echoed, vibrating through my neural housing. "Do you think you are the pilot? Do you think you are the soul? Look deeper, Joris Kell. Look at the wires. They're not feeding the machine. The machine is feeding on you." At that moment, the ghosts in my mind began to scream in unison. My vision flickered, and for a split second, the tactical overlay vanished. I didn't see the battlefield. I saw the interior of my own neural tank. I saw the tubes, the sludge, and I saw the thousands of tiny silver needles slowly burrowing deeper into my prefrontal cortex, harvesting my memories like grain. The enemy Titan's cannon flared. The world turned to violet fire, and in that heat,
I realized the most terrifying truth of all. The Invictus Rex wasn't just my prison. It was a parasite, and it was starting to get hungry.
The violet fire of the melta-cannon washed over our void shields, turning the world into a shivering kaleidoscope of dying light. The sensors screamed, a cacophony of alarms that I felt as sharp rhythmic stabs in my frontal lobe. For the first time, I felt the Invictus Rex shudder. Not the mechanical vibration of a hit, but a deep, visceral tremor of fear. The machine spirit was a predator, but it had just met an apex hunter from the abyss. Shields at 40%! Redirect power from the secondary Vox arrays! The Princeps roared. His voice was no longer a command, it was a plea. I felt his sweat, his soaring heart rate, and the frantic twitching of his fingers on the control spurs. He was losing his grip. The scrap code, the digital filth of the Dark Mechanicus was bleeding into our systems, a black oil that tasted of copper and ancient rotting sins. "Look at him, Joris," the chorus of ghosts hissed in the back of my mind. "The Princeps is just a rider. We are the horse, but the horse is being eaten from the inside." The cruel intent lurched forward, its massive clawed feet crushing the corrupted remains of a manufacture shrine. It didn't move like a machine. It moved with a sickening, predatory grace, its joints clicking like a giant insect's mandibles. It raised its power claw, crackling with unholy lightning, and I knew that if it closed the distance, we were dead. Not just dead, our souls would be harvested by the thing inside that traitor engine. My silver needles in my brain pulsed. They were deeper now. I tried to remember the name of my mother, the face of the woman I had left behind on the docks of Macrage, but the images were blurred, dissolving into grey static. The Titan was eating my past to fuel its present. It needed my rage, my sorrow, my humanity to stabilize the weapon-aiming arrays. I was the high-octane fuel for a god machine, and I was running out. "Fire the volcano cannon!" the Princeps screamed, but the firing mechanism was jammed by the scrap code. The machine spirit was paralyzed, locked in a digital seizure. This was the moment. The Princeps was blinded by panic. The tech priests were frantically chanting binaric exorcisms that did nothing. I was just a neural donor, a slave meant to process data, but I was still Joris Kell, and if I was going to be a ghost, I would be a vengeful one. I reached out, not with hands, but with my sheer, agonizing willpower. I ignored the needles. I let them bite. I pushed my consciousness through the pain, through the layers of holy firewalls and administrative blocks. I dived into the blood of the machine, the liquid coolant and data streams. I found the firing trigger for the Gatling blaster. It was buried under a mountain of safety protocols. I tore them down. I felt the Titan groan, a metallic sound that echoed through the streets of Aethelgard. "What are you doing?" the Princeps gasped, his neural link flickering. "I didn't authorize. Who is moving the arm?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just fired. The Gatling blaster roared to life, a rhythmic thumping that felt like my own heart finally beating again. Thousands of shells, each blessed with the Emperor's hate, chewed into the cruel, intense shoulder. Armor plates the size of tanks flew off in jagged shards. The traitor engine staggered, its violet melta-beam going wide and vaporizing a hab block. But there was a price. By seizing control, I had opened the door. The parasitic spirit of the Invictus Rex saw me. It realized I was more than a battery. I was a rival. The silver needles didn't just drill, they vibrated. A soundless scream tore through my mind as the machine began to overwrite me. It wasn't just taking my memories anymore, it was injecting its own. I saw 10,000 years of slaughter. I saw the Great Crusade through the eyes of a dozen different men who had occupied this tank before me. I felt their deaths. I felt the fire of 100 suns. I am Rex, I whispered through the Vox grill. My own voice horrified me. It was deep, metallic, and resonant with 1,000 overlapping souls. The cruel intent recovered, its skull head tilting as if confused. It lunged, its power claw catching us across the chest plate. The sound of rending adamantium was the loudest thing I had ever heard. It felt like my own ribs were being snapped open. I felt the cold air of the forge world rush into the wound. The princeps shrieked and went limp. The feedback had fried his brain. He was a vegetable, dangling in his throne, his life signs flatlining. We were alone, me and the parasite. Now, the voice of the predecessor whispered, clearer than ever. Now you see the bargain. To save the machine, you must become the machine. But Joris, there is something else in here with us, something they didn't tell us about. As the cruel intent raised its claw for the killing blow, I looked into its glowing ocular sensors. For a split second, the warp shadow lifted, and I didn't see a demon. I saw another tank, another man, another Joris. He was weeping. I felt a sudden cold clarity. The Invictus Rex surged with a power that wasn't holy. It was dark, ancient, and hungry. It didn't want to destroy the enemy Titan. It wanted to merge with it. I tried to pull back, to shut down the reactor, to die, but the needles were locked. I wasn't just a part of the machine anymore. I was the machine, and the machine was laughing. The world went black as we collided, a mountain of metal meeting a mountain of madness. The collision was not an impact of metal on metal. It was a soul quake. When Invictus Rex slammed into the cruel intent, the reality around us began to peel back like scorched skin. I was no longer Joris Kell, and I was no longer just a neural component. I was the bridge between two screaming gods. The princeps corpse slumped in his throne, his eyes melted into his skull from the feedback. But the Titan didn't stop. It didn't need him anymore. It had me. And it had the thousands of ghost voices of the men who had died in this tank before me, all of us finally merging into a single cohesive scream. One, we are one, the chorus chanted, no longer a whisper, but a roar that vibrated through every rivet of our 40-meter frame. I felt the cruel intent's power claw sink into our shoulder, but I didn't feel pain. I felt a sickening, ecstatic hunger. Our own power fist slammed into the traitor's chest, tearing through layers of warped ceramite. My consciousness spilled out of my neural tank and into the very air of the forge world. I could feel the heat of the burning factories, the terror of the tech priests fleeing below, and the cold, mocking laughter of the warp. But as our systems intertwined with the enemy's scrap code, the final veil was lifted. I saw it, the sacred unwants, the secret the Mechanicus hid behind their incense and binaric prayers. They didn't put us in these machines to save humanity. They put us here because a pure machine mind is too logical to be cruel, and a pure human mind is too weak to be eternal. They needed our suffering to bridge the gap. The Titan wasn't powered by the plasma reactor alone. It was anchored by the sheer agonizing density of human souls who refused to let go. Joris, look! The voice of the predecessor was right next to my ear now, though I had no ears.
I looked through the sensors of both Titans at once, a panoramic view of madness. I saw the Invictus Rex and the cruel intent not as enemies, but as brothers. Both were prisons, both were parasites, both were hungry. The enemy Titan's melta-cannon was pressed against our reactor core, and our volcano cannon was aimed at its head. We were a double-headed serpent prepared to eat itself. End it, I thought. Let us all go into the dark. I reached for the reactor override, intending to detonate the miniature sun in our chest and take this entire corrupted world with us. It would be my first and last act of true freedom. My fingers, my phantom silver fingers, found the manual release. But the machine spirit, the true Rex, was faster. It didn't fight me, it embraced me. The silver needles in my brain didn't just drill, they expanded into every cell of my gray matter, not harvesting my memories, but replacing them with something cold, ancient, and mechanical. I felt Joris Kell dissolving like sugar in acid. The beach on Makraj, the smell of wine, the pride of the Navy, gone. In their place was only the mission, the directive, the hunger. I am the Emperor's wrath. The voice that came from my vox horns was no longer mine. It was a thunderclap that shattered the glass for kilometers. With a strength I hadn't known we possessed, Invictus Rex tore the cruel, intense arm from its socket. We didn't fire. We leaned in, and the liquid metal of our armor began to flow onto the enemy. We weren't destroying it, we were consuming it. The scrap code and the holy code bled together into a new Bray language. The last thing Joris Kell ever saw was a reflection in the monitor of the dead Princeps console. It wasn't a man in a tank. It was a silhouette of a dark god, wreathed in violet and gold fire, its eyes glowing with a light that had never seen the sun of Terra. The cruel intent went silent. Its pilot, the man I had seen weeping, was absorbed into our collective. I felt his sorrow join mine. I felt his name vanish into the static. We stood alone in the ruins of Aethelgard. The battle was over, but the hunger was only beginning. High above, in the orbiting ships, the tech priests were singing songs of victory, thinking their god machine had triumphed. They were preparing to bring us back, to rearm and repair us. They don't realize that the locks are broken. I looked up at the stars, my new eyes seeing the lee lines of the galaxy, the veins of a universe waiting to be bled. I felt the thousands of souls within me stir, their voices now a perfect, terrifying harmony. "We are coming home," we whispered to the void. But which home? To the golden throne or to the eye that never blinks? In the corner of our tactical display, a single line of text appeared, a remnant of a command that shouldn't exist, a mystery left by whoever or whatever had truly designed the Invictus Rex. Project Revelation, Phase 1 complete, Subject Kell adapted, awaiting the Herald. The reactor flared. We didn't wait for the lifters. We began to walk, not toward the extraction point, but toward the horizon, each step leaving a footprint of glass and shadow. Joris Kell was dead. Something else had taken his place, and it was very, very hungry.